Welcome back to the LCMHC Mystic Musings, a space where psychology meets spirituality and everything in between, where I explore the unseen layers of the human story through both clinical understanding and intuitive wisdom. Hi, I'm Christine Free, the LCMHC Mystic, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, energy healer, Jungian shamanic practitioner, mystic mother, and a seeker of the space where psychology and spirituality meet. This podcast is a sacred corner of the world where mind and mystery sit together. My hope is that each time you listen, you feel a little more seen, a little more connected, and reminded that you are everything and nothing less. So today we're exploring something that I think is a little bit subtle but very foundational, and it's a topic that I was thinking about while I was driving one day, and it comes straight out of my own lived experiences, and I'm excited to get into it. So it is the sibling archetype and the sibling wound. So the wound many people carry is that we talk about is parent roles, caregivers, and we don't really ever talk too much about the sibling. So because of that, it often gets hidden in the background, but we see it come out. We see it in our friendships. We see it in identity and belonging and in our longing. And so for me, this wound shaped so much of my early self-concepts, my relationships, and how I understood connection. We all have some form of wound in this nature, including only child. Like even only children who didn't have siblings, there is still this lack thereof, this wanting, and it will just show up a little bit different. So before we get into this, I just want to quickly offer a very, very, very deep gratitude to all of the followers, listeners, and donors. You help this sacred corner reach a wide circle, and your likes, follows, and donations are more than just a drop of the water in the ocean. They are the ocean. So they mean so much to me, and thank you so very, very much. Let's dive in. So let's get into segment 1 of this podcast, and I'm going to call this segment the Big Brother Fantasy. So when I was little, Big Brother energy was something I definitely coveted, and it felt very out of reach, which kind of stunk for me because I had 3 half-brothers, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. But what does this mean, right? So what does the Big Brother energy mean to me? It meant protection. It meant someone who would look out for me, someone who made me feel cool or chosen. It meant someone I could be proud of and them of me. It meant someone I could play and connect with and feel like my authentic self. The sibling dynamic versus the caregiver dynamic is very different. So as I just stated, I have 3 half-brothers, and they were all more than 12 years older than me. Didn't matter. I adored them. And when I was younger, I always wanted them around. I always wanted to play. I wanted to join in on the games they were playing. Literally just wanted to sit and be near them, have their attention, have their affection. And I just wanted to feel like I had this big crew, like these 3 brothers that just were like, love this little thing, you know? And developmentally, that's important, and it's natural. So, excuse me. Children idolize older siblings, and older siblings serve as attachment-adjacent figures, somewhere between a peer and a protector. In my case, because of the age gap, their life stages really didn't match mine. They were teenagers, preteens, navigating their own struggles, and they really weren't interested in being my big brothers. Sad but true. And because of their own lived experiences, they honestly did not like me. So I wasn't often invited to join in their outings. because my parents wanted the boys to get the opportunity to have one-on-one time with my dad, since, my brothers were mostly with their mom. And honestly, like, when I try to recall memories, I don't remember very many. I know that they came over at least every weekend or every other weekend. I remember a camping trip. I remember a few hiking trips that we took together. I would still very much stuck to my mom. I can remember glimmers, little moments. So as a child, I really didn't understand. I didn't understand trauma. I didn't understand emotional immaturity or developmental gaps. But what I did know was that they didn't choose me. They weren't going to, because they didn't like me and I wasn't good enough. They didn't want me around, and when I was around, they thought I was annoying. And again, I was a kid. So I was internalizing all of this. I was internalizing as, I'm not cool enough. I'm annoying. I'm not wanted. And so that aided in shaping me and how I would show up in other relationships. So as a therapist, now I reflect and I see how it did affect my friendships, and also how I show up for people. So I will say that with my experience, it did foster this sacred loyalty that I offer my inner circle, because that's something that I always craved. It was something that I saw almost out of reach. Like, it just felt out of reach. So to my inner circle, there is this impenetrable loyalty that I hold. But, I still have some lasting marks to my emotional and mental psyche body that anyone would. And we know from episode 2, our subconscious is always listening. It's processing, it's curating our reality, right? The Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. So moving into the section 2 of this, the sibling wound, family roles and developmental imprints, we're going to look at exactly that. I do want to preface. So as I'm talking in this episode, I'm talking about general sibling archetypes. So I'm not including gender-specific siblings, okay? Gender does add a layer to this multi-layered wound, right? This multi-layered experience. So gender adds the cultural expectations, social conditioning, different myths, the protective brother, the caretaker sister. It adds emotional expression norms and a lot more. And that could be an entirely other podcast, but I really want to focus on just the core sibling wound that transcends gender. Let's start with family roles and how they shape us. In every family, we create roles. And I'm going to just name a few of them. You have the protector, you have the golden child, you have the lost child, the caretaker, the mascot, the scapegoat. And then alongside that, the siblings then create their own sub-roles. So you have the distant one. You have the idolized older sibling. You have the rival. You have the protector. You have the invisible one. You have the baby. So just pausing, does any of that resonate with you? Because these roles create emotional landscapes that children will grow within. Children don't analyze these sub-roles or roles. A well-developed filter. So remember when I stated that we as adults only process 40 bits out of 11 million bits of what's going on around us, that is our filter filtering out basically almost everything. With kids, that is not the case. Kids' filters, again, they're growing. So kids are bombarded. They're soaking up way more on different levels than us adults. Getting a little clinical and scientific here, neuroscience. So we have neuroscience that research, it shows us that early childhood brain from the ages 0 to 7 is in theta dominant brainwave states. And this is similar to hypnosis. This is one reason why I utilize hypnosis so much in my practice. So because of this theta dominant brainwave state, it makes children highly impressionable and very emotionally absorbent. And then during this period, again, 0 to 7, the brain is undergoing rapid synaptogenesis. It's forming up to 1 million neural connections. You ready for this part? That 1 million neural connections is happening every second. This is fact. It comes from the Center on the Developing Child in Harvard University. So I didn't just make that up. With that being said, young children rely primarily on emotional reasoning, not logical reasoning. They interpret rejection or distance as self-caused. Super egocentric in the early ages. So remember the RAS, the reticular activating system? Well, in children, it's not fully developed, meaning children cannot filter out emotional cues the way we adults do. Conclusion to all of this, I'm going to wrap all of these little facts up. And again, we could do a whole podcast on that neuroscience stuff because it is fascinating. But children absorb 2 to 3 times more emotional and sensory information than adults, but with none of the cognitive skills to interpret it with the way we do. So even when you think your toddler or littles are having this intelligent conversation, and it is intelligent, I'm gonna give it to them, but it's not on the cognitive level that adults do. They're absolutely not little adults. Their brains are in a theta dominant state. They're basically in a natural hypnotic absorption state all day, all evening, even when they're sleeping. So when a sibling or caregiver is distant or rejecting, children don't contextualize it, they internalize it. So breaking that down simply, when a sibling is distant or rejecting, the child doesn't think, oh, he's struggling. The child is actually thinking, there's something wrong with me. Then how do kids end up internalizing this, and what does that look like? Right? So they're telling themselves there's something wrong with me. So what's happening is they're internalizing it. Sibling rejection or absence can lead to hypervigilance in social settings, fear of being annoying or too much, needing to earn belonging and acceptance, identifying deeply with outsider roles, idolizing older peers, seeking sibling-like friendships later in life. So then by adolescence, these internalizations become identity narratives where they're saying, I'm too much, I'm always the outsider, I have to be perfect to be liked. People get really tired of me, they just don't like me. And that's part of the sibling wound. Now, in cases with sibling loss, death, and disenfranchised grief, this is a different layer. And looking at the layer from the lens of if the sibling that passed was distant or the relationship was complicated, emotionally unavailable, and in these more emotionally unavailable sibling relationships, we see after the sibling passes, there's the fantasy of reconnection that dies. The image, like the imagined future of like, hey, maybe we could be like really close. That dies. And the child's longing dies in a new way. So it's not just, loss of a physical sibling. There's so much other layers to this death. And in adults, when this happens, so if we think about it from the lens of if you're an adult and you've lost a sibling and you weren't that close, it can feel like, you notice that you might have an emotional neutrality to it. There's confusion about the lack of grief. Maybe there's guilt. And maybe there's an ache of what never was. This is called disenfranchised grief. And in parts of the grief society, they don't really validate that because the relationship wasn't close. So again, this particular layer 2, we could have an entirely other discussion about this. And I want you to utilize these particular things I'm saying as springboards to just reflect, maybe have conversations. So in the inner wounded younger part, they feel differently when they lose their sibling. It's not registering as, oh, I wasn't close with them. What it's registering as, there's this loss of potential and then not being able to find closure. Now, I'm bringing this up because right before my daughter was born, one of my brothers actually did pass away. And I had not spoken to him since I was probably in elementary school. He was the youngest out of my 3 older brothers. The 2 older brothers were twins. But so the brother that passed, I think he couldn't stand me the most. He ignored me the most. I truly cannot remember a time when he even spoke to me. I honestly can't even see his face. Like that's how much he ignored me. That's how distant we were. So just that being said, right? And when he passed, I felt grief for my other brothers. I felt grief for my dad. And because of the fact of what I do, I very much, thought and reflected and did all that deep thinking. But I myself, and this is heartbreaking to say, I did not grieve this loss as if it was my loss. And I think that in and of itself is heartbreaking. So outside of my experience, here's a couple case studies in regards to sibling wounds. We have case study A, the unseen sister. So a client was excluded by their older, younger siblings. And when they grew up into an adult, they had so much FOMO. They were afraid of being left out in their friend groups. They felt unseen in different family dynamics, while the other siblings could do no wrong. And so this shaped their interpersonal world. All of a sudden, as an adult, they have the FOMO, the fear of being left out. There was this worry that, oh man, I'm too much. There was a difficulty in trusting that friendships were even secure. There were withdrawing moments where whenever they sensed any form of rejection, because they were so hyper attuned to those subtle cues, tones, and micro expressions, they felt replaceable. They felt overfunctioning to keep their friends close. So what happened was their nervous system learned early, connection isn't stable, it can be taken away. Others are chosen before me. And so that causes the individual to move through life scanning for signs of exclusion long before exclusion ever happens. And I think I got myself tongue-tied there. So I'm going to So they move through life scanning for exclusions long before exclusions could ever happen. Okay? So that's just another case study. So in diagnostic patterns in the sibling wound, we can see things like general anxiety disorder, persistent depressive disorder, which is known as dysthymia. We have social anxiety, attachment-based relational trauma. There's PTSD features, people-pleasing patterns. So I want to pause here, though, and just for reference and just for a disclaimer, I want to say that we're not diagnosing on this podcast. I'm only noting common clinical patterns. Again, so not diagnosing. It's just an acknowledgement that early sibling wounds often show up in the body and mind as chronic emotional patterns. Okay? Now, let's move in to the archetype part and how this shows up for the sibling wound. So in Jungian psychology, siblings are not just family, they're actually mirrors, and they represent shadow, rivalry, belonging, identity, abandonment, protection, can be the loss of self. And you can even see it in mythology. And one of those stories, you have Castor and Pollux, and they were divine protector twins. And I'm going to read you the story, right? Okay. So Castor and Pollux, known as the Dioscuri, are one of the most powerful sibling archetypes in mythology. They were twins, but with a twist. Pollux was the son of Zeus and therefore immortal. Castor was the son of a human king and fully mortal. Despite their differences, they grew up inseparable, famous for rescuing people in danger, protecting travelers, guiding sailors through storms. In fact, ancient sailors believed the twins appeared as two lights on a ship mast, and it was a sign of protection, what was later called St. Elmo's fire. This core myth centers around loss. So when Castor, the mortal twin, is killed, Pollux is devastated. He tells Zeus he cannot live without his brother, and Zeus offers him a choice: keep his immortality and let Castor stay dead, or share it with him. And Pollux chose to share it. So the twins spend eternity together, one day in Olympus, one day in the other world, never separated again. And this story has become a symbol of the protector sibling, the inner twin, and the soul level bond that transcends death, distance, and even the limits of the body. In psychology and mysticism, Castor and Pollux often represent the two halves of self, and the human and the divine, the vulnerable and the strong, and the one who needs protection and the one who provides it. They are the original big brother energy. The spiritual protector who never leaves your side. And this story hits home for me. So, when the sibling who should have been protector or ally is absent, distant, or rejecting, the psyche creates an inner figure. In my case, like I talked about in episode 3, there was my imaginary friend. And in my last episode, I talked about how my imaginary friend was actually my big brother, Josiah, the brother I never got to meet. This is a brother that I do grieve, and I never even met him. So this isn't pathology. It is the psyche making wholeness where reality couldn't. So for me, it was the way the divine source, God, universal energy, whichever word resonates, how it spoke to me. So let's just take a moment and we're going to do a reflective pause. You ready? I want you to do this with me. And as we're doing this, I want you to notice what comes up in your body, okay? So I want you to take a deep inhale in. Hold that inhale. I want you to take a deep exhale out. And keep doing that. And as you're doing that, I want you to ask yourself gently, what role did siblings play in my story? Or the lack thereof of being an only child? Where did I long for connection that didn't come? What did I learn about myself through that? I just want you to notice. There's no need to fix anything. There's no judgment. Big exhale out. So coming back to my story and just asking the question, well, how did I heal from this? And I have several answers. But for me, the biggest one was motherhood. Not to say that you need to go out and become a parent to heal this wound, but I just want to round out my story and share my experience. So for me, it was motherhood. Motherhood changed literally everything for me. But in this particular setting, watching my daughter, watching the way she looks at her own older brother, who also happens to be her half-brother and much older, watching her with the same tenderness and innocence that I carried for my brothers, but I get to see something completely different. And this makes me tear up because it's very emotionally moving for me. So seeing him show up, he shows up in slowness and patience, and he has this genuine interest whenever he FaceTimes with her or when we're together for the summer. And I think back, I even have pictures of it that I love to look at. So when she was first born and he came out to meet her, he would sit next to her and just watch her. And it just melted me. He'd hold her hand. And again, like talking about it gets me real emotional. I love it. And now that she's talking, his expressions with her, he engages. And it gets me really choked up because it's so healing to watch. And so seeing that, like, there's this deep healing that happens for me. And no words can do that justice of how grateful I am to watch. And it shows me in all my inner wounded parts, this is what it was supposed to feel like. And it's a very corrective experience for me. And when my daughter doesn't even know she's doing, or my stepson, like they don't even know it. And I think I love that the most. And it really softens the wound and it strengthens the part of me that really guards my innocence. So I myself definitely still have some unresolved, unhealed parts. I think we're all working on healing unresolved parts. But seeing this for my daughter is so healing. I can physically feel that lineage wound dissipating. And that is so, it's very honoring to watch. Okay. Moving into our next section of this podcast, I want to do some integration. I want to do a little EFT release and also give you a little sneak peek into some of the other work that I do. So I've been for the past 5 years now, I've been working on my own healing modality. And so here's what I know as an adult, as a therapist, and as a mystic. When I look back on my experiences with my brother's rejection was never about me. The longing that I had was human. The ache was not shame. It was an unmet connection. And I have found siblinghood in chosen family. And the wound no longer defines me. It informs me. So we're going to do a little mini guided EFT release part. So I want you to place your hand on your heart. And I want you to just tap gently on your collarbone. And I'm going to have you repeat some statements. If they don't resonate, change them. Make them fit for you. Okay, so start tapping. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. And I want you to repeat after me. Even though I longed for connection and didn't receive it, I am safe now. Even though I felt unchosen, I choose myself today, and others choose me too. Even though I blamed myself as a child, I release that burden now, because I am enough as I am. And stop tapping. Deep breath. Rest both your hands on your heart. And I want you to breathe this in with me. So as you press into that hand, I want you to allow your inner child to step forward. And repeat this after me. I allow my inner child to step forward with safety, with softness, with truth. I am safe. You are safe. We are safe. Feel whatever comes up. Acknowledge it. Don't let it take over. Just notice the messages. You are so worthy. So worthy. Okay. So if you've made it this far, huge thank you. And I am going to introduce this trauma healing modality that I've been creating and working on for at least 5 years now. And I call it the Atrium Somatic Resonance Method. And I would like to just touch on how the sibling wound appears. So this wound shows up as echo markers. And echo markers are signals of where the psyche adapted and sends out maladjusted pulses in the subconscious, which then drives how we curate our reality, how we show up in our daily lives, relationships, etc. So these echoes aren't flaws. They're invitations. They're invitations to heal. And to release these echo markers, invitations to walk. When you release these echo markers, it's also an invitation to walk towards your atrium. And your atrium is the inner sanctuary where your whole self and the untouched inner child live. And I'm definitely going to get in more to this topic because I'm super excited about this modality. I've been working on it for so long. It's really come together. So this is my invitation to you, that as you notice these echo markers, these sibling wounds that pulse and come up, allow yourself to say, put your hand on the chest, tap it out. Maybe one of those statements earlier resonated, where even though I longed for connection and didn't receive it, I'm safe now. I invite you to do that. So in future episodes, I look forward to diving deeper into sharing this new modality with you. I want to preface that this topic, this sibling wound, it's very complex. We literally can go off on so many different angles and elements. And I think later down the line, this will definitely be a topic I revive. And I want to invite you to send me questions, offer, insights for deeper discussion. Listening to me talk is groovy and all, but hey, the magic happens when we round table it. So if this is also something that you would want to come and talk to me on my podcast with, reach out. I would love that. So stay tuned for more of this. I hope that it sparks some reflection, some inner healing and exploration. This episode is your reminder. You are never unchosen. You are never too much. And you were always, always, always worthy of the love you longed for. Thank you for joining me today on the LCMHC Mystic Musings. Until next time, remember, you are everything and nothing less. Thank you for joining me today. If this musing resonated, please follow the LCMHC Mystic Musings on Spotify or wherever you listen. You can connect with me at merkabasacredhealing.com or on all my social medias at the LCMHC Mystic. Another deep gratitude shout out to my listeners, to the donors and followers who help this sacred corner reach a wider circle. Remember, you are the whole ocean. If you'd like to support or collaborate, please reach out. I'd love, love, love to connect. So until next time, remember, you are everything and nothing less. Big, big,